thought it was phenomenal. James Taylor, I've been listening to him for quite some time now, probably about a year. Great information. Gives you a process to map out your creativity. It gets your juices flowing on it. Environment on where to be to get the creative stimulus going. He was just phenomenal. It was one of a kind. I mean, he gave examples of everything. Excellent tools he used. Tons of great references and all kinds of stuff. And it was just top notch. I enjoyed it.
I'm here to argue today that we are all creative. That's sometimes contentious. I know that I'm in a room of lawyers today. My partner's a lawyer, and so I know you like starting things with definitions. So I should probably start. So according to Webster's dictionary, creativity is the ability to make new things or think of new ideas. But there's actually two types of creativity that they often talk about with creativity experts. It's called big C creativity and small C creativity. So small C creativity, let's say if you're cooking up a dish and you add this thing and add that thing and you come up with something kind of new, novel. That's small C creativity. Big C creativity, however, is where you change the domain or the field in which you're working. So Einstein in class is doing big C creativity. Now, to give you another demonstration, if everyone's watched Anchorman, Ron Burgundy, fictional character Ron Burgundy, you could argue that he had big C creativity. He changed the domain of 24-hour broadcast news. It was not just a new novel, but he changed the domain. My cat, Parker, on the other hand, is called small creativity, where he has extremely new and novel ways of bringing small animals into our house, but he's unlikely to change the domain of pest control anytime soon. But what all creativity experts do believe is that we are all creative, talking about big C or small creativity. Now, I'd love to see a show of hands just now. Put your hand up if you identify yourself as being creative. Okay. So it's about half of them. And a recent study by Adobe actually showed that only 39% of global respondents describe themselves as being creative. In America, slightly more, about 52%. Here in the UK, it's 45%. So why is that? Why are so few people identifying themselves as being creative? My job, what I do most of the time, is I work with organizations, institutions, leading experts to take what's in their head and create online schools, online courses, events with it. This is one we actually run, an event, a live event we run in upstate New York, in Woodstock area, where we actually get a whole bunch of would-be guitarists come together, and we run them inside Italy and all over the place. And I work with a lot of brands, both in teaching business online, teaching medicine online, teaching music, teaching art online. And the thing that always intrigued me, whether it's online courses or events, is that when someone reaches a big birthday, usually a birthday with 0 on the end, or after a major life event or something's happened on illness, they often go, you know what, I want to get back to that thing inside of me. I want to get that creative thing again. They pick up that guitar again. They pick up that paintbrush. They start working on that business idea that they're thinking of. They start writing that first chapter in that novel that they've always had. So why does it take so long to go from someone that's just, we're all born as, I believe we're all born as being creative, but why does it take so long for people to come back to it? Picasso said that every child is an artist, and the problem is how we remain an artist once we grow up. And I'll argue one of the reasons that we don't define ourselves as being creative is because of how we're brought up in our education system. Now, if you've ever seen a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, one of these, you can see them completely immersed in drawing and painting. They're in what psychologists call flow state, totally immersed, a really beautiful thing to watch. Something else you might notice is that the drawings and the paintings are quite abstract as well. This is called the pre-conventional stage of creativity. But then they go to school, and their crayons are taken away from them. And they're taught conventions, how to run with conventions. And as part of that, you actually see their art becoming more representational. You start painting objects more than some of these abstract things. The speech becomes more literal than this metaphoric. And so that is compounded also by their peer group and coming around them as well, adding another level of conventions. And that's absolutely fine. It's part of what we do as growing up. But there comes a point when we reach kind of adulthood, we have to go to this next stage and we become post-conventional, where we say conventions are useful signposts, but we need to think for ourselves, challenge, and sometimes break these conventions. I think what's happening is when people get to that age, at that big zero in the end, what they're really saying is, I want my crayons. Now, part of that is because in creativity we believe it's impossible to be original if you are conforming, and originality is necessary, though not sufficient, to live a fully creative life. Another reason I believe a lot of people hold back from calling themselves, identifying as creatives, is this thing, it's called the creative genius myth. Because we think, the media often portrays a creative person as being this lone genius, drug-taking, risk-taking, wild-eyed, this lone person. And it's a myth. I'm going to show you why it's a myth. Because there's a difference between being a creative genius and having creative genius. You see, the early Greeks and Romans believed that genius, ideas, creativity flowed through us. We were vessels for ideas. These ideas may come from a God, a higher power. They may come from the culture, the things around us, the collective consciousness. Now, one of the repercussions of that is if you were successful at something, a creative endeavor at that point, you can take all the credit because it wasn't all on you. But if your creative project failed, fine, there's other factors a bit more complicated than that. But then this gentleman came along, Giorgio Vasari in the Renaissance, and he wrote this book, it's called The Lives of the Artist. And it's little short biographies of the great artists at that time in the Renaissance. He had a very different narrative about creativity. He said that creativity all came from in, from I am the genius. It's all in here, it's the ego, it's I am the genius. And that led to a couple of things that happened. And first of all, he had to carefully paint out all the assistants, all the apprentices that actually helped these great artists create that great work. The other thing that he did, in doing that, is he put a huge amount of pressure on us having to define ourselves as that lone creative genius without getting the help of anyone else. And for the first 10 years of my professional career, I was a modern-day Vasari. This is what my job was. I was an artist manager. I managed many bands like Beacon and Blue, you probably know here in Scotland. Also working with people like Jeff Beck, and members of the Rolling Stones, and opera stars like Bryn Terfel, and lots of Grammy Award winners. And I was doing exactly the same thing with my artists. It was a useful narrative because the media liked it. So we would paint this idea of a lone genius. But the fact is, it was always a myth. All the most creative geniuses, people that you class creative genius I work with, are exactly the same as everyone else in this room. They all had fears like these. Do you recognize any of these for yourself? My ideas aren't good enough. My ideas are new or novel enough. My ideas will be rejected. Someone's already done it, but better. I feel I'm too young to start. I'm too old to start. I'll publish it and I'll get that work out there only when it's perfect, this idea of perfectionism. Now, perfectionism, I would want my lawyer to be absolute perfectionist with the drafting of the agreement or my accountant. But in a lot of other creative things, perfectionism can hold you back. Perfectionism is really a high-class type of fear. It's fear in designer clothes. It's trying to be elegant when actually inside it's totally petrified. That's what perfectionism is. So if you recognize any of these, you're not alone. That's how all creatives feel. Around the mid-2000s, this started happening in our industry, the music industry. It's called the long tail effect. And it's called because of digital. And what happened was anyone can all of a sudden create and produce and distribute their creative work. Anyone with a computer and an internet connection could get their music out to millions. And the result was that you had a small number of big hits at the far end of the tail, but all these lots of new niches that started coming up because suddenly you could reach an international audience all from your home office or living room. And what that caused was things like this. This is the vegan death metal chef. He has a huge following online. He sings death metal vegan recipes with his songs. That's a niche within a niche within a niche. That's part of the long tail effect we started to see. But you're also now seeing lots of other industries. In publishing, you're seeing the big publishers having a real problem just now because more people are self-publishing, creating their own works. You're also seeing in funding for entrepreneurs. We used to have to go to a bank if you wanted to get funding for your business. Today, there's crowdfunding platforms like Crowdcube, Kickstarter. It's a good friend of mine, Amanda Palmer. She's a music artist and creative, and she funds all of her creative work by using this crowdfunding platform called Patreon. And essentially what she says to her audience is, if you support my work, just give me $1 to $10 every time I produce a thing. So she has 8,000 patrons. So every month when she produces a thing, a song, an artwork, a video, she makes about $40,000. And what you're starting to see with digital is because it allows us to have all of these niches going on, you're getting an explosion of creativity with new writers, new musicians, new artists, new entrepreneurs in every possible niche imaginable. Now, in late 2010, I got a call from one of the founding team of AOL, and he could see that this long tail effect could also be used in how people learn. And he wanted to create a business around completely transforming and democratizing online education in the same way that distribution and production have been democratized. So he asked me, if we can go into music first of all, he asked me, James, would you please come over and help me build this business? So at that point I had to make a decision to, should I leave the cold grey skies of Scotland and move to the warm blue skies of California? I was on the very next flight. And when I got there, we saw there was this explosion in creativity, especially in the education area that I was working in. And when I landed, we had organizations like Coursera. They did one course, one teacher, 160,000 online students in one intake. So this was showing that the long tail effects also having this effect on that most traditional industries, education. And what we were all looking at was this type of thing here, where in this first 20 years we've had the internet, we've had about 3 billion people come online. In the next 4 to 5 years, another 3 billion people will be coming online. Asia, from sub-Saharan Africa, from all over the globe. And the thing that's amazing about this is these people will want to create and upload and download and buy and learn and sell. If you thought the competition was tough now, wait and see what's going to happen over the next couple of years. This is a huge opportunity. So I'm going to talk to you about the creative process itself. The creative process consists of 5 stages, and that is actually an iterative process. I'm going to talk to you through it as a linear way, because actually it goes back and forth. And in stage 1, you'll all recognize this stage as the preparation stage. If you're working on any kind of project, it's where you bury yourself in the research. Advocates, they'll bury themselves in maybe the previous case law or the casework itself. As musicians, you bury yourself in listening to all the other artists that you may be inspired by. As writers, you read previous writers. So this is the very first stage that we have. And for me, at this point, I had to decide, I wanted to create a podcast, but I could see these 3 billion people were coming online. And I wanted these 3 billion, I wanted to show the potential of creativity and get as many of these 3 billion people online to identify as creative as possible. And one of the ways I wanted to do it was creating a podcast, because I like podcasts myself personally. They're one of the few mediums that you can listen to while getting other things done, walking, running. So I decided to create a podcast. There was only a slight problem with this, is that I was fully maxed out in terms of my time, so I need to try and find out how can I use digital online to essentially use my time more efficiently. And the first thing I did, which is actually a very simple task which you probably do yourself, is to create a list and divide a piece of paper up into 3 columns. In that first list, I list all the things that you don't like doing. And I'm sure everyone has lots of tasks that you don't like doing. In the middle one, you list all the things that you can do. You don't have the skills necessarily. You know, for me, I know nothing about websites, developing websites. I'm a tech entrepreneur and I can't code. It's a strange thing. I don't know anything about editing podcasts. I don't know, and I absolutely shouldn't be anywhere near handling tier 1 support. I can do it, but it's probably not the best use of my time. So think for yourself in your own time. If you do like a Pareto principle, an 80-20 analysis of your time, think about all those things you probably should be doing. So for creating this podcast, I'm going to use the podcast as shown through the creative process, is I had to then think, well, who's going to do all these things that I can't do? So thankfully with online, I'm able to do this now. With companies, previously you had corporate outsourcing. Today we have personal outsourcing, where I was able to assemble a team for around about $100 a month. You can hire an online virtual assistant, someone part of the globe. This is my personal team for my creativity work. It's Karen, she's a social media expert, she's really good at what she does. That's Macy, who's a graphic designer. That's Mark, video editor. That's Chad, who's another graphic designer and web developer. And before, it was not going to be possible, before we came to this year that we're in now, this age, to be able to do that. Today, you can go online like that and you can outsource many of the tasks. I even got my mother a virtual assistant so she could spend more time with her cousins. So what we did in that previous stage, we all kind of got together and we all worked on how we can make this podcast really great. In stage 2, we went to the incubation stage. Often when you're absorbing huge amounts of information, you need to take a step back and you need to ideally move to another project for a while. So you can let your subconscious do a lot of the heavy lifting and do the work. So with my team, we actually went and worked on a different project for about a week and a half. While we could just let your brain do the work. You may have experienced this yourself. If you're working really intensely on absorbing a lot of information, you need to take a step back and let the brain do the work in the background. Something you'll notice in Silicon Valley is how they use color in spaces to get more ideas in this process. So as you're walking around, if you're walking on Google or Facebook or some of these buildings, you'll see things like based upon this, which is this is a University of British Columbia study, where if you have the color red around you, people score higher for levels of accuracy. So if you go into the accounting departments and offices, you'll often see walls painted red or furniture that they're using red color. If you have the color blue around you, you actually get higher levels of idea generation. So those rooms where people are doing brainstorming, they'll often have the color blue within it as well. Part of the reason we get this idea of blue sky thinking. They actually carried out a more recent study at the University of Berlin, and they found the color green outperforms both blue and red for generating new ideas. Probably one of the reasons we get so many of our best ideas when we're out walking with nature. And you've probably seen this yourself. If you subscribe to any of these services, the button that they want you to press is a hot color. It's red, it's orange, or it's yellow. If you make it a blue, you'll see a decrease around about 3% of people clicking that button. Have a look at your own company's website just now. What is the button you want to press? What color is it? So then we move to stage 3, the insight stage. This is the bit in the movie about the person working on the project. They have the light bulb moment, that aha moment. It makes for a great narrative. It's actually not true. It's only actually a very small part, time-wise, in the whole creative process. And it usually, or more often than not, happens when you're doing some low-level physical activity. It's one of the reasons we get some of our best ideas in the shower. Unfortunately, that's not me, and I should probably go to the gym now that I see that picture. But if you've ever experienced it yourself, getting those ideas when you're just relaxing in the day in the bath or in the shower, why is that? Well, what's going on is your brain is unwound, it's disorganized, it's fuzzy, it's making very remote associations, it's unconventional, it's allowed to think unconventional thoughts. You have this alpha wave rippling around you and finding these things that are kind of coming together. That's not particularly a scientific explanation for it, but if you want to go into the research, you go in fully for that. So try and think about ways, if you want to have more insights about how you do low-level activity. Another thing is caffeine. High levels of caffeine are amazing at the early stage, in the preparation stage, because you're very focused on outward work, you're just getting through the work. But it's actually one of the worst things you can try and do if you want to have insights, to drink high levels of caffeine. This has been backed up by some recent research. This is Martha Farrar, neuroscience professor at University of Pennsylvania. She said you might be able to work for 8 hours straight on coffee, but you're probably not going to have many big insights. Now, when I speak to people and I say I'm involved in creativity, they say, oh yeah, we do brainstorming sessions at our work. And unfortunately, most brainstorming sessions are done completely wrong. Brainstorming started in the 1950s, and if you've probably been in the situation of a brainstorming session where we have what we call the tyranny of the marker pen. The person that has the marker pen, somehow all their ideas end up being the ones that get pushed forward. That's just a really common thing. So a couple of just quick tips here just on doing brainstorming, if you use that in your organization, is the first thing, everyone should have a pen for a start. Everyone should have post-it notes. No one should dominate the board. But actually what's more important than what happens in the room at the time is what happens beforehand. You see, a lot of people who are more, they're not necessarily big and exuberant, maybe like I am, but they want to think about their problems more and just try and work out solutions. You're much better giving everyone that's going to have that meeting what the problem is in advance, so everyone can think about and come up with some of their own solutions. And when they come together in the room, everyone puts those ideas down initially, and then you start having fun and coming up with it. Now with online, you have a little bit of a challenge because we're not in the same physical space. All my team are in the Philippines. I've never been to the Philippines. So how do you do this kind of brainstorming online? Well, there's a couple of things. This is one we did recently. What I do is when we do brainstorming sessions, I organise pizza delivered to all the homes of everyone on my team. So we get together and we do exactly what I just said there. We give everyone the problem in advance, everyone comes together, we have certain tools that we use in order to get these ideas down as well. So in our case, when I work on this podcast, and I had to kind of think, okay, these are some of the problems, how do we distribute this thing? What guests do we get? So everyone kind of came with their own ideas, and we got all those ideas down together. The fourth stage is evaluation. So this is the stage in the creative process when you give feedback. It's really when you decide, is this an idea worth pursuing? Is this something we're going to go ahead with? And one of the best companies at working through this evaluation in a very creative way is Pixar. So Toy Story, you probably recognize a lot of these animations that they've made. Also based in Bay Area, in San Francisco. And how they give feedback to their team is incredibly important. I'd like to take something away in terms of thinking about your next meetings that you go to, how you give feedback. Because every morning they have one of these, they're stand-up meetings where they go through the previous day's work and they give feedback. How they give feedback is critical if you're going to create a creative environment. Because you have to provide feedback at the right time. It's very easy to sometimes give feedback a little bit too early into an idea as it starts to be developed and crush that idea. Also sometimes it can be too late, the project can get away from itself. You also need to say what is wrong, missing, or unclear when you're giving feedback. Don't rush into providing a solution. I know it's really easy just to want to give that solution straight away. Allow people time to explore the idea. You can always come in with your suggestion as well, but give people time to work out their own solutions. And finally, be specific with your feedback. So in the case of Pixar, what they do is rather than someone say, that seems terrible, that just doesn't work. What they will say is, this scene lacks the pace of the previous scene because of X, Y, and Z. I can do something with that as an animator. I can work with that. So think about that for your next meeting that you're going on how to give creative feedback. The final stage is what we call the elaboration stage. This is, as I think Edison said, a success of 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. This is you doing all the work and just kind of getting on and testing and analysing and tweaking. And in the case of the podcast, when we launched the podcast, and what we decided to do is we decided 3 times a week, we interview some of the leading creative scientists, musicians, artists, designers from all over the world. And as I said, I have kind of relatively time limited, so I can only really give maybe 30 minutes to do each interview with that person. So I was using my virtual team to help me do that. I'm going to talk to you very quickly about the process of how a podcast works. It can show you the final part of the elaboration stage. When we create a podcast, what happens is my assistant Karen, she comes up with suggestions for the guests based upon a whole bunch of different factors, their online profile, how many YouTube videos they have, a whole bunch of things, how interesting they are. We get together, we discuss them, we decide which ones we're going to go for. She then sends the request to them. That request, they can choose to go on online diary. It always knows on Monday, between 12 and 3, I do my interviews. They choose their time. I do the interview on Skype from wherever I am in the world. It gets uploaded to Dropbox. That then gets used by my video editor, Mark. He then strips the audio from it, strips the video, creates an audio, adds bumpers on the outside, puts sponsors, bits and pieces on it. That goes back to another assistant. She will then do all the transcribing of it and actually creating a blog post out of it as well. That will go to another person who will do quality assurance to make sure it all looks fine, all the clicks and everything are right. And this is all happening in the space of around about 2 days. It's a very quick process to turn it around because we have a system doing it. But here's the thing with what I was talking about, this long tail and all the niches. As soon as they press publish on that post, it goes to YouTube, it goes to SoundCloud, it goes onto your Apple TV, it goes onto your iPhone, if you subscribe to the podcast, it goes to Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. It goes out to that. And the reason I say this just now is everyone in this room you're an expert at what you do. You're probably very, very skilled at what you do as well. How can you leverage that to get your expertise out to more people, whether it's to build your brand, your personal brand, or whether it's to build your firm's brand as well, or generate income? So some of these tools are available to you today allow you to do that by using personal outsourcing and by using some of the tools that exist in terms of this kind of thing, yes, be everywhere strategy. So as we finish up just now, I want to kind of show you some things that you can take away today, both personally and professionally, to kind of capitalize on this digital creative age. Creativity is actually very much an innovation, so it's very much like a team sport. So we all have to come to work on it, having tuned our creative skills, and so we're in the best possible condition. That's part of our responsibility when we come to the party. So you have to think about that in terms of the rest of your team. Is everyone on point? Is everyone really developing their creative skills? So as an individual for yourself, one of the simplest things you can do, as lawyers you'll have CPD, continual professional development. Think about CCD, continued creative development. If creativity is going to be the third most important skill that you can have, what are you doing to invest in that skill just now? One of the easiest things you can do, take an online course. If you've got the idea for that novel in the back of your head, take an online creative writing course. If you want to pick up that guitar again, take one of those courses there. If you're interested in combining your interest as a lawyer with maybe writing, University of Dundee have an amazing course on forensic science, which combines Val McDermott's work as a writer with the forensic science department. They're all free, they're all available to you as well. So start to invest in that. And with your CPD, you're investing in your skills necessarily as a lawyer, those types of skills. But in CCDB, invest in your skills as a creative more broadly. Something else you can do, you can just get a very cost-effective journal. Every morning spend 15 minutes free writing. What that journal will do is never going to be seen by anyone else. The journal is there so you can get your creative ideas out onto the page. It's to start developing and working through your ideas. No one's ever going to see it. It's a great way. If you think about creativity being like a muscle, you have to work and you have to train that muscle. And morning journaling or daily journaling is very effective. If you want to build in terms of your professional, your brand, whether it's because you just have a personal brand you want to build as an expert in your field, or whether it's for your firm, there's lots of ways you can be doing that now with online digital creativity. So for example, with me, I focus on podcasts because that's a medium I personally enjoy. My friend Marie Folio, she has a different way. She uses videos. Every week she'll interview a top expert, and then 1 week in the year, she'll put her online course on sale, where she teaches nowadays marketing. She does about $10 to $20 million of revenues in that 1 week when she puts that online course on sale. You can create free courses using things like Udemy. So Udemy is a great free platform. You just have to have one of these, camcorder, and just film yourself giving lectures, and you can put your course up there. It could be a paid course, so you can use it as a lead generation thing, or maybe for your internal team to teach them something, or you can use it as a paid course. Maybe there's something you want to teach, maybe it doesn't necessarily relate to your job, but you have a passion about it. You can use things like Udemy. This is the American Bar Association up here on the left. They have regular Google Hangouts where they will bring leading experts together for the members. Are you a member of a trade association where you can offer to be the host of that, where you bring leading experts together, helps build your brand, the brand of your firms, and also helps you give something back to your industry? This is a guy called Brian Copeland in the top left-hand corner. Just goes through, it doesn't require a lot of technology. He uses an app here called Vine, it's very simple, and every day he does a 30-second, great screenwriter, very popular screenwriter. He films a 30-second tip on screenwriting. Could you do the same for your patent attorney? 30-second patent attorney tip. You're starting to build your brand, sometimes beyond your firm as well. So when that 3 billion people are coming online and they're looking for that patent attorney, that creativity expert, that lawyer that has that niche specialism, you're there. Some people hear me already currently lecture at universities or do guest lectures. Find out if they already work with a MOOC provider, a massive open online course provider. Offer them to co-create a course together. This is one here at University of North South Wales on international franchising we've done. This is a British company called Future Learn, it's owned by Open University. There's huge numbers of platforms that are working with these institutions, not just universities, but also specialist organisations. I'm not sure if the faculty advocates have a similar kind of relationship, but there's lots of them. Use those to be able to kind of promote your brand as well. This is my friend Robin Nolan, and he's a musician, gypsy jazz guitar player, niche style music. What he decided to do was he was attending a music conference in LA, and he got there and the conference had been cancelled, so he had 3 days with in a hotel room, nothing to do. So he went out and bought a $200 camcorder, like the one we have at the back of this room here, and he filmed over 3 days a course, in this case on gypsy jazz guitar. That course now earns money while he sleeps, but more importantly, it allows him to develop and build his brand in his area, in his niche. So it doesn't have to be complicated for you to build your brand online. And the final one, very quite low tech, just with email. If you subscribe to this, helpareporter.com, every day they're going to send you 50 requests from journalists. There's an email with 50 requests. Journalists are looking for lawyers, advocates, barristers to give feedback on maybe current business stories that are happening in the news or different areas. So if you want to start, how do people get on those TV shows, on Sky News? How do they get quoted in these newspapers? Often reporters are using a service like this in order to find these specialists. So in conclusion, we talked about the creative process. Hopefully I showed you the power that we now have at this incredible time where the next couple of years we're going to have 3 billion new people coming online. I truly hope that you decide to take advantage of that as well. If you want the slides of this and the presentation, I also have a free creative ebook. Just text this number here, and you can get that. It will be delivered to you as well. But the main thing, if you leave this room with nothing else, please start to consider yourself as a creator. It's an identity you should be absolutely proud to have. I don't want you to wait until you get to a later point in your life where you say, I wish I should have, could have, would have. Hopefully, if nothing else today, I've helped you reclaim your crayon and take your crayon.